Title: Top HFY Stories, Loose Cannon. Humanity has always been known for its resilience, adaptability, and unpredictable streak, but when that streak is personified in one individual, it often leads to legends being born. This is the story of Captain Lila Loose Cannon Thorne, whose actions turned the tide of an interstellar war. The Galactic Concord was humanity's reluctant ally, made up of countless alien species. Their federation was sophisticated, logical, and precise. They appreciated humanity's tenacity but found their methods, and their people, to be wild, erratic, and hard to predict. Among all the humans in their ranks, no one exemplified this reputation more than Captain Thorne. Lila Thorne had earned her nickname Loose Cannon during her early days as a pilot in the Terran Defense Fleet. She had a knack for improvisation, often disregarding protocol in favor of creative, high-risk maneuvers. Some called her reckless, others called her a genius, but no one could deny her results. The war with the Xeric Dominion had dragged on for decades. The Xeric were brutal, insectoid conquerors who saw diplomacy as weakness. Their fleet was vast, their technology advanced, and their hive-mind coordination made them nearly impossible to outmaneuver. The Concord was losing ground, system by system. Humanity, the newest member of the Concord, was contributing what it could, but their forces were comparatively small. Captain Thorne was assigned to a Concord outpost near the fringes of contested space. Her ship, the Dauntless, was a mid-sized Terran frigate, modestly equipped but faster and more agile than most Concord vessels. Her crew was a mix of humans and aliens, many of whom had been skeptical of serving under her command. That skepticism didn't last long. The turning point came during the Battle of Kartok Nebula. A Xeric armada had been detected moving toward a vital Concord supply line. The fleet assigned to defend it was vastly outnumbered and outgunned. The Concord's rigid strategists advised retreat, arguing that conserving forces for future battles was the logical choice. Captain Thorne had other ideas. "If we give up that supply line, we're handing them the war," she argued during a tense strategy meeting. "We don't need to win outright, we just need to make them think twice about advancing." Her plan was audacious: lure the Xeric fleet into the Kartok Nebula, a region filled with unstable gas clouds and gravitational anomalies. The nebula was a navigation nightmare, but Thorne saw it as an opportunity. "They rely on hive-mind coordination," she explained. "Disrupt that, and they'll be vulnerable." The Dauntless led a small task force into the nebula, broadcasting false signals to appear as a larger fleet. As the Xeric pursued, Thorne's crew deployed experimental gravity mines, destabilizing the nebula further. The mines triggered chain reactions within the gas clouds, creating massive explosions that scattered the Xeric formation. In the chaos, the Dauntless weaved through the battlefield, targeting key Xeric command ships. Thorne's unorthodox tactics confused and demoralized the enemy. Her crew, initially skeptical of her plans, quickly adapted, their trust in her growing with every maneuver. By the time the Concord reinforcements arrived, the Xeric fleet was in disarray, their hive-mind coordination shattered. The Concord forces secured a decisive victory, and the supply line was saved. Captain Thorne's actions at Kartok Nebula earned her both admiration and criticism. The Concord's leadership viewed her as a necessary but dangerous wildcard. To humanity and her crew, however, she was a hero. The battle became a rallying point, inspiring the Concord to adopt more flexible strategies in future engagements. Years later, when the war finally ended, Lila Loose Cannon Thorne's name was etched into the annals of history. She had proven that humanity's unpredictable nature wasn't a weakness but a strength, one that could turn the tide in even the darkest of times. Title: Top HFY Stories, The Adaptive Survivor. The silence of deep space was shattered by the distant roar of explosions. The Solar Vanguard, humanity's flagship exploratory vessel, floated crippled on the edge of the Hadros Rift. Its hull was scarred from the ambush, and its crew was scattered, some captured, some lost in the void. Among the survivors was Chief Engineer Nathan Cade, the man who would rewrite the rules of survival and spark humanity's rise in an alien-dominated galaxy. Nathan had always been a tinkerer, born in the sprawling industrial hubs of Luna. He grew up surrounded by machinery and the constant hum of innovation, but no amount of training or experience could have prepared him for the ambush. The Solar Vanguard had been on a diplomatic mission to the Mrath Consortium, a powerful coalition of reptilian species. What was meant to be a peaceful meeting turned into a bloodbath when the consortium revealed their true intentions: to capture and dissect humanity's technology and its people. Cade woke up in a cold, metallic cell aboard a Mrath battleship. His captors underestimated him. To them, he was just another human, weak and unremarkable, but they had overlooked humanity's greatest strength: adaptability. The Mrath were a species of rigid hierarchy and tradition. Their technology was advanced but relied on predictable, modular designs. Cade studied every detail of his prison, from the flickering control panel outside his cell to the faint hum of the ship's power core. Over days, he scavenged scraps from his meager meals and bits of his clothing, fashioning crude tools. His first breakthrough came when he managed to short-circuit the cell's energy barrier, slipping out into the labyrinthine corridors of the ship. Cade's next move was audacious. Instead of fleeing, he infiltrated the ship's engineering deck. What he found there amazed him. The Mrath's systems were powerful but inflexible. They lacked the redundancy and failsafes humans took for granted. With a smirk, Cade got to work, sabotaging key systems and planting viruses in the ship's network. By the time the Mrath realized he was missing, their ship was on the brink of collapse. Nathan didn't just escape, he turned the tables. Using a stolen escape pod, he navigated to a derelict human outpost hidden within the Hadros Rift. There, he found remnants of old mining equipment and broken-down ships. It was a graveyard of forgotten human endeavors, but to Cade, it was a treasure trove. Over weeks, he scavenged and rebuilt, transforming the outpost into a fortress. He hacked into old communication arrays, sending a distress signal encoded with a warning: humanity was under attack. In the meantime, he prepared for the inevitable. The Mrath wouldn't let him go unpunished. When the Mrath finally located him, they arrived with a small fleet, confident in their superior firepower. But Cade had used every ounce of his ingenuity to level the playing field. He had rigged the asteroid field around the outpost with explosives and jury-rigged automated turrets from mining lasers. The Mrath ships found themselves ensnared in a deadly trap. Cade didn't just fight them off, he captured one of their vessels, reverse engineering its systems to enhance his own technology. By the time reinforcements arrived, both human and alien, Cade had already become a symbol of human resilience. The outpost, now fortified and bristling with alien and human tech, stood as a testament to humanity's ability to thrive under pressure. Nathan Cade's actions sparked a new era for humanity. The Mrath's betrayal united the fractured human colonies and forged new alliances with other alien species who had suffered under the consortium's tyranny. Cade himself became a legend, not just for his engineering brilliance but for embodying the indomitable human spirit. Years later, when the United Terran Fleet launched its first wave of advanced starships, they bore a single phrase etched into their hulls: *adapt and overcome. It was a tribute to the man who turned the tide and proved that humanity's adaptability was its greatest weapon in the vast, unpredictable expanse of the galaxy. Top HFY stories, loose cannon. In the far reaches of the Orion Arm, where the Galactic Concord's laws held tenuously and the void was ruled by whispers of rebellion, humanity was often underestimated. To the vast coalition of alien species, humans were young, fragile, and reckless, but they hadn't met Captain Jared Loose Cannon Mercer. Mercer had earned his nickname during the Battle of Marduk III, where, in true human fashion, he ignored orders and improvised a plan that single-handedly turned the tide of the war, a plan that involved jury-rigging alien tech into his ship, charging into a blockade of 30 enemy vessels, and broadcasting a deafening mix of heavy metal music and an ancient human battle cry: "Come get some." The galaxy hadn't forgotten, especially not the Krillnath Empire, who suffered an embarrassing defeat that day. Now, years later, Mercer had found himself in another precarious situation. The starship Zephyr, his pride and joy, drifted just outside the gravitational pull of the black hole designated GX 9917. The only other occupant of the cockpit was a nervous, bird-like alien named Crete, who clutched his translator module like it was a lifeline. "Captain Mercer, I must insist that we retreat. This is madness," Crete squawked, his feathers puffing out in alarm. Mercer smirked, leaning back in his chair and chewing on a stick of gum. "Madness? This is strategy." Crete blinked his three eyes. "The Krillnath destroyers outnumber us 20 to 1. Their plasma cannons can reduce us to atoms, and yet you sit there, chewing. Relax, Crete, they're not going to shoot." Mercer gestured to the holographic display, showing the Krillnath fleet closing in. "See, they know who I am. They know what happens when I'm cornered." Crete tilted his head. "And what happens when you're cornered?" Mercer grinned, his teeth flashing like a predator. "I start getting creative." The Krillnath commander, Admiral Thrall, was in no mood for games. He sat in his command chair aboard the dreadnought Doomfang, his mandibles clicking in frustration as he glared at the human ship on the viewscreen. "Is this some kind of joke?" Thrall growled. "One human vessel against my fleet?" His second-in-command, a younger Krillnath officer, hesitated. "Admiral, this human is Mercer." Thrall's mandibles froze mid-click. "The loose cannon?" "Yes, Admiral." Thrall leaned back, considering. The stories of Mercer's exploits were infamous, each more improbable than the last. The man had a reputation for doing the impossible, often at great personal risk, and always with maximum chaos. "Open a channel," Thrall ordered. The image of Mercer appeared on the viewscreen, reclining in his chair with his feet propped up on the console. He gave the Krillnath commander a lazy salute. "Admiral Thrall, long time no see, how's the mandibles?" "Mercer," Thrall said, his voice low and dangerous, "you are outnumbered and outgunned, surrender now, and I may show mercy." Mercer chuckled. "Outnumbered, sure, outgunned? Debatable, but surrender? Not really my style." "You are a fool." "No, I'm human." Mercer leaned forward, his expression suddenly sharp. "And humans? We don't play fair." What happened next would go down in galactic history. Mercer had been stalling for time. As usual, the Zephyr's engines were modified to emit a specific frequency that destabilized Krillnath plasma weaponry. As the Krillnath fleet prepared to fire, their weapons overheated, causing a chain reaction of minor explosions across their ships. But that wasn't all. Mercer had also planted a series of remotely activated drones disguised as space debris around GX 9917. With a press of a button, the drones ignited, creating a gravitational slingshot effect that hurled the Zephyr safely away from the black hole, while pulling the Krillnath fleet dangerously close to its event horizon. Crete screamed as the Zephyr spun through space, narrowly avoiding destruction. "You call this a plan?" Mercer laughed, exhilarated. "Worked, didn't it?" The Krillnath fleet scrambled to escape the pull of the black hole, but not before several of their ships were lost. Admiral Thrall, furious and humiliated, could only watch as the Zephyr disappeared into the stars. Back on the Zephyr, Crete slumped in his seat, his feathers limp. "You're insane." Mercer shrugged. "Maybe, but that's why they call me loose cannon." And somewhere in the vastness of space, humanity's reputation as the galaxy's most unpredictable species grew just a little bit stronger. ##### loose cannon, the reckoning. The Zephyr cruised silently through the empty expanse of Sector 12, its patched-up hull a testament to a lifetime of skirmishes, escape maneuvers, and, more often than not, pure insanity. Jared Mercer was back in his chair, legs up on the console, tossing a stress ball into the air while Crete paced frantically behind him. "Captain," Crete started, his feathers twitching with frustration, "you've just humiliated the Krillnath Empire again. You think they'll let this go? They'll send everything they've got after us." Mercer caught the stress ball midair, a grin spreading across his face. "Let them. I've got something they don't." Crete froze, his three eyes blinking in unison. "A death wish?" "Close," Mercer said, standing up and stretching. "I've got guts, ingenuity, and..." He jabbed a finger at the blinking holographic map. "This." The map zoomed in, displaying a hidden star system surrounded by debris and pulsars. Crete tilted his head. "The Oris Reach? No sane species ventures there. It's a wasteland of unstable wormholes and ancient wreckage." "Exactly," Mercer said, his grin widening. "It's where I stashed the big guns." Crete's feathers bristled. "You mean to tell me, you've hidden weaponry powerful enough to fight off the Krillnath fleet in one of the most dangerous regions of space?" "Not just weaponry," Mercer said, "a fleet." The Krillnath Empire didn't waste time licking their wounds. Within hours of Mercer's escape, Admiral Thrall had assembled his full armada, a force of nearly 200 warships. This time, he wasn't taking chances. The galaxy's pride was at stake. "Track the human vessel," Thrall ordered, his mandibles clacking with fury. "I want Mercer's head mounted in my war chamber." The Krillnath officers worked tirelessly, triangulating the Zephyr's trajectory. When they saw its course leading toward the Oris Reach, a ripple of hesitation passed through the bridge crew. "Admiral," one of the officers said cautiously, "the Oris Reach is highly unstable. No fleet has ever ventured in and returned intact." Thrall's eyes narrowed. "Then we'll be the first. Prepare the fleet." On board the Zephyr, Crete was beginning to regret every decision that had brought him to this point. The ship rattled as it entered the chaotic fringes of the Oris Reach, where gravity wells and spatial anomalies twisted reality itself. "Captain," Crete shouted, gripping the edge of his console, "this is madness." Mercer just smirked, his hands flying over the controls. "Relax, Crete, the Krillnath won't follow us in here." Crete's response was drowned out by the shrill alarms blaring through the cockpit. Mercer glanced at the radar, which lit up with dozens of incoming signals. "Huh," he said, almost impressed. "Looks like I underestimated Thrall. They followed us." The Oris Reach was chaos incarnate. Gravity spikes flared unpredictably, ancient derelict ships drifted like ghosts, and wormholes yawned open without warning. But Mercer knew the region better than anyone. He had spent years exploring its secrets, mapping its dangers, and hiding his greatest ace in the hole. As the Krillnath fleet closed in, Mercer activated the ship's comms. "Admiral Thrall," he said, his voice casual, "I've gotta hand it to you. Following me here? That takes guts. Stupidity, sure, but also guts." Thrall's face appeared on the viewscreen, his mandibles twitching with anger. "Mercer, your tricks won't save you this time. This is the end of your pathetic games." Mercer shrugged. "Maybe, but before you blow me to smithereens, let me show you something." He pressed a button, and the Zephyr's transmission shifted to a live feed of the surrounding space. From the depths of the Oris Reach, ancient human warships began to power up. Massive dreadnoughts, bristling with weaponry far beyond anything the Krillnath had ever seen, emerged from the wreckage. Thrall's eyes widened. "What is this?" "Welcome," Mercer said, his grin devilish, "to humanity's forgotten fleet." The battle that followed was nothing short of legendary. The Krillnath fleet's advanced weaponry was powerful, but it was no match for the sheer unpredictability of Mercer's tactics combined with the devastating firepower of the ancient human ships. Mercer led the charge, weaving the Zephyr through the chaos with reckless abandon. Crete, strapped into his seat and screaming incoherently, clutched his translator module like a prayer bead. "Captain," he shouted, "we're outnumbered, even with this fleet. We can't win." "We don't have to win," Mercer replied, his eyes gleaming with determination. "We just have to survive." In the end, it was the Oris Reach itself that sealed the Krillnath's fate. Mercer had spent years studying its patterns, and he used its unpredictable gravity spikes and wormholes to his advantage, luring the Krillnath ships into traps they couldn't escape. By the time the dust settled, the Krillnath fleet was in ruins. Admiral Thrall's dreadnought, heavily damaged, limped away into the void, and the Zephyr, battered but victorious, drifted through the wreckage. Crete slumped in his chair, his feathers singed and his nerves frayed. "Captain, remind me never to sign up for one of your plans again." Mercer laughed, clapping him on the shoulder. "Come on, Crete, admit it, you love it." Crete groaned, covering his face with his wings. "Humans truly are the most terrifying species in the galaxy." Mercer grinned, leaning back in his chair. "You bet we are." Far away, the Krillnath Empire licked its wounds, vowing revenge, but in the shadows of the galaxy, stories of Mercer's daring grew. Humanity's reputation as the galaxy's loose cannon was cemented, and Mercer wouldn't have it any other way. Want more chaos or a twist? #### loose cannon, the warpath. The galaxy didn't stay quiet for long. Mercer's victory in the Oris Reach had sent shockwaves through the galactic concord. Humanity's name was on every alien news feed, and Mercer's face, grinning, cocky, and utterly unapologetic, was plastered across wanted posters in a dozen star systems. Back on the Zephyr, Crete had finally worked up the courage to ask the question that had been gnawing at him. "Captain," he said, feathers fluffed nervously, "why did you hide that fleet in the Oris Reach? You must have known you'd need it someday." Mercer shrugged, spinning a wrench in his hand as he worked on a busted conduit. "It's not about needing it, Crete, it's about having it. Humanity's always been outnumbered out here. I figured a backup plan couldn't hurt." Crete tilted his head. "And now that the Krillnath know about it?" Mercer grinned. "Now, we make it bigger." Meanwhile, the Krillnath Empire wasn't licking its wounds for long. Admiral Thrall, humiliated and furious, had returned to the Krillnath homeworld with a single purpose: vengeance. In the shadow of the Empire's capital city, a hidden laboratory buzzed with activity. The Krillnath were preparing their ultimate weapon, a biotechnological warship known only as the Ravager. It was a living, breathing monstrosity, powered by a hive mind and capable of adapting to any enemy. Thrall stood before the towering creature ship, his mandibles twitching in satisfaction. "Mercer thinks he's clever," he growled, "but this time, he'll face the full might of Krillnath ingenuity." Back on the Zephyr, Mercer was blissfully unaware of the monstrosity heading his way. He was busy recruiting. The hidden human fleet, while formidable, was outdated. Mercer needed allies, and he had a plan to get them, though, as usual, it was insane. His first stop? The Shard Collective, a species of crystalline beings known for their unparalleled energy manipulation. Their technology was leagues ahead of the Krillnath, but they had no interest in politics or war. Mercer, naturally, saw this as a challenge. The Zephyr docked at the edge of the Shard Collective's territory, a glittering field of floating crystal spires that pulsed with an ethereal light. Crete stared out the viewport, his feathers puffed with unease. "Captain, the Shards are notoriously difficult to negotiate with. They don't think like us." "Good," Mercer said, slapping a fresh stick of gum into his mouth. "I hate when negotiations are boring." The two stepped onto the Shard Council platform, where towering crystalline beings awaited them. Their voices resonated in unison, vibrating through the air like a symphony. "Human," the shards intoned, "why do you disturb our peace?" Mercer grinned, arms outstretched. "I heard you guys were all about energy manipulation, thought you might like a chance to test your skills." The shards pulsed with curiosity. "Elaborate." Mercer pulled up a hologram of Asterisk the Ravager, Astérisque grotesque, pulsating form sending a shiver through the room. "This thing is heading my way, and it's going to tear through half the galaxy if we don't stop it. You guys are the only ones who can disrupt its hive mind tech." The shards were silent for a long moment. Finally, they spoke. "Your request is intriguing, but what does humanity offer in return?" Mercer grinned, pulling out a small, glowing orb. "Ever heard of quantum energy folding? We perfected it a century ago. I'll give you the tech." Crete's jaw dropped. "Captain, that's classified." Mercer cut him off. "It's not classified anymore." Against all odds, the Shard Collective agreed to help, but Mercer wasn't done yet. Over the next 2 weeks, he traveled across the galaxy, rallying an unlikely coalition of allies, rogue AI, constructs, mercenary fleets, and even a band of nomadic space whales. By the time the Ravager arrived, Mercer wasn't just leading a fleet, he was leading an armada. The final battle was a spectacle the galaxy would never forget. The Ravager was as terrifying as the rumors had suggested. It tore through ships with biomechanical tendrils, absorbed energy blasts, and adapted to every strategy thrown at it. But Mercer, true to form, had a plan. The shards unleashed a coordinated energy pulse that disrupted the Ravager's hive mind, leaving it vulnerable. The rogue AI constructs hacked into its systems, creating chaos within its organic network, and Mercer, piloting the Zephyr like a man possessed, delivered the final blow, a modified quantum torpedo launched directly into the Ravager's core. As the monstrosity exploded in a blinding flash of light, Mercer's voice crackled over the comms. "Guess they shouldn't have underestimated a loose cannon." In the aftermath, Mercer's reputation reached mythic proportions. The Galactic Concord issued a formal apology for ever doubting humanity's place among the stars. The Krillnath Empire, now leaderless and fractured, retreated into isolation. And Mercer? He went right back to causing trouble. On the Asterisk Zephyr, Asterisk Crete sighed as Mercer leaned back in his chair, chewing on a stick of gum and grinning at the latest wanted poster. "Captain," Crete said, "don't you ever get tired of being hunted?" Mercer shrugged. "Nah, keeps life interesting." And with that, the Zephyr vanished into the stars, leaving behind a galaxy that would never forget the name Jared Loose Cannon Mercer. Want to explore a different twist or build on this even further?